All right, everyone, get ready for this because we're doing a deep dive on The Cultural War on Men, a survival guide.
By Conrad Reicher.
Exactly, by Conrad Reicher.
Yeah.
And this book is, I think a lot of people are familiar with the concepts, but this goes really deep
Oh, yeah.
into a lot of these issues that men are facing. And so it was a really interesting read. And
Yeah, and Reicher's, what's great about his work is he doesn't really pull any punches, does he?
no, he does not.
He just goes straight in.
It's very direct.
Very direct.
Yeah.
And he confronts this idea of a war on boys.
Right away.
Right away.
Yeah.
And he lays out some statistics that are, they're pretty jarring when you first read them.
Yeah.
I think one of the ones that really struck me was that boys are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD than girls.
3 times.
3 times.
It's like, wow.
It really makes you wonder, like, are boys inherently more prone to these issues?
Yeah.
Or is there something else going on here?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's the question that Reicher digs into, right?
Oh.
He argues that the traditional traits that we associate with boys, like
Competitiveness,
competitiveness,
a little more physical.
a tendency to be more physical, that these are being pathologized. They're seen as problems to be fixed rather than just, natural expressions of boyhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And he uses a really striking example in the book of a boy named Jake.
Oh, Jake.
Who loved sports, naturally took on leadership roles, but was constantly criticized for being too aggressive, too disruptive.
Oh, I hate that. You're just a boy. Like, come on. Let them be kids.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
it just seems like we're almost trying to fit boys into this mold that doesn't naturally suit them.
Right, yeah.
And this carries over into adulthood, right?
Yeah.
Where the definition of masculinity itself has become, well, frankly, kind of blurred.
Oh, yeah. It's like, what is it?
Right, what is it?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And Reicher highlights this double bind that men face, right?
Okay.
Be strong.
Assertive.
But
sensitive.
But also sensitive and emotionally available.
Yeah. But don't cry too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Like, what are we supposed to be?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And he uses this analogy of the knight in shining armor.
Oh, yeah.
Strong, brave.
Okay.
But also chivalrous, capable of vulnerability.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
It's a good analogy because it speaks to this need for balance, right?
Yeah.
And Reicher argues that suppressing natural masculine traits can be detrimental, right? It can lead to frustration.
Totally. And it's like, what are we suppressing for?
Exactly.
What's the point of this?
And this sense of not being enough.
Right.
Yeah,
definitely. So let's get into something that I know always sparks debate.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Hypergamy.
Yeah. I know it's a loaded term.
Absolutely.
But Reicher, he approaches it, from a very, like a scientific evolutionary perspective.
Yeah. He's not coming at it from a moralistic standpoint.
No.
He's not saying it's good or bad.
No.
He's saying this is what it is.
Right.
This is how it's rooted in biology and survival instincts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just some scheme that women cooked up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about, millions of years.
Right. Exactly.
So, no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes that hypergamy isn't inherently a bad thing.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about women being naturally drawn to men who can provide security resources, and that's been essential for survival throughout human history.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Especially when you're talking about, child rearing.
Right.
And back in the day when things were a lot more difficult.
Yeah. And Reicher he's not demonizing women for this at all. He's just saying, this is how it is.
It's a fact of nature.
Right.
But he does point out that societal pressures amplify this natural inclination.
Yeah, okay. And then it creates this whole environment.
It creates this environment.
Where men feel pressure to...
Where men feel constant pressure to achieve a certain level of success.
Yeah.
Just to be considered an attractive partner.
Right.
Think about the messages that we're bombarded with constantly.
Totally.
The emphasis on wealth, status, physical appearance.
Oh, yeah.
It creates this marketplace.
Yes.
Where men are constantly striving to increase their value.
Totally. It's brutal.
It's tough out there.
Yeah. So, and this leads us to another really crucial topic.
Okay.
That Reicher gets into, which is emotional manipulation.
Emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
Now, this is a big one.
Yeah, and it's something that I think a lot of men experience, but don't necessarily
Don't even realize.
yeah, don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And Riker goes into, tactics like the silent treatment, gaslighting, triangulation.
Well, classic.
The classics.
Yeah.
And he's not saying that all women engage in these behaviors.
Oh, of course not.
But the point is that they exist.
They do exist, and they can have a devastating impact on men's mental well-being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he tells this really kind of heartbreaking story in the book about a guy named Skriv, who's a successful lawyer. But his self-esteem was just chipped away by his wife's constant emotional manipulation.
I hate that.
And it's, this is like...
And it's subtle. That's the thing.
It is.
That's what's scary about it.
It's insidious.
Yeah.
It's insidious. It's not like somebody's,
Yeah.
punching you in the face.
Yeah, yeah. It's this
death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, it is. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it can be really, really damaging. And Riker...
And it's hard to even, recognize that it's happening.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And
then you just blame yourself.
You blame yourself.
Right, yeah.
You think, oh, I'm not good enough?
Yeah, yeah. It's really...
And that just fuels the cycle of manipulation. Right.
Right. Yeah, it's insidious, like you said.
It is, yeah.
Now, Riker doesn't just, leave us hanging.
Right.
With that. He
gets us some tools.
He offers some practical strategies. Yeah, for dealing with these situations, like setting boundaries.
Oh, boundaries are key.
Communicating assertively.
Yeah.
And even seeking professional help.
If you need it.
If you need it, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, it's about equipping men with the tools to recognize this and address these issues head on.
Head on, that's right.
Yeah. Now let's move on to something that I think is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners.
Okay.
Which is the decline of traditional male spaces.
The decline of traditional male spaces, yeah.
And Riker.
This is something that a lot of men are feeling.
Yeah.
Whether they...
Yeah, it's palpable.
Yeah. They may not even be able to put their finger on exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But they know something's missing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And
he argues that these spaces like barbershops, bars,
men's clubs
they're
under attack. Yeah.
Yeah, he uses the Boy Scouts as a prime example.
Oh, the Boy Scouts.
Once a bastion of traditional masculinity.
Right.
Now open to girls. It's like, what is going on?
It's a symptom of this larger trend.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's almost like this push for what Riker calls feminization.
Right, yeah, political correctness. Political correctness that seems to view traditional masculinity as inherently toxic.
Right, and I think the point he's trying to make there is that this isn't about excluding women.
Right.
It's about recognizing that men...
We have different needs.
When it comes to bonding, social interaction,
And I think this is something that, we've lost sight of.
Yeah.
It's like...
In this quest for equality, we've kind of forgotten that men and women are different.
Right.
And that's okay.
It is okay.
It's more than okay. It's actually a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing, right?
And these spaces provided that sense of camaraderie, of support.
Yeah.
A place where men could just be themselves without judgment.
Yeah, without judgment.
And without having to walk on eggshells.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, it's not about saying women can't have their own spaces and their own ways of connecting.
Of course not.
But men need that too.
Absolutely, men need that too.
And I think we've forgotten that. We
have. And Riker suggests that the loss of these spaces is actually contributing to a sense of isolation among men.
Oh, totally.
Which is,
That's what I was going to say.
Negatively impacting
their mental health.
And well-being.
And well-being, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he cites studies showing that men who have strong social connections
with other men,
tend to be happier, healthier.
Absolutely.
They'll live longer. Yeah.
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
These bonds are essential.
Yeah.
They're not something to be demonized or dismissed.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
So now let's tackle another hot button issue.
Okay.
Which is the gender pay gap.
Gender pay gap. All right.
And Riker, he acknowledges that there is a difference in earnings between men and women, but he challenges this very simplistic narrative that it's solely due to discrimination against women.
Yeah, he digs into various factors that contribute to the gap.
Yeah.
Things like career choices, work-life balance, even risk tolerance.
Yeah, things that people don't really want to talk about.
Right. It's a very nuanced.
They want to keep it very simple.
Yeah, they want to keep it very simple, but it's not.
Black and white.
It's not.
Yeah.
And he even points out that in some cities, women aged 25 to 34 actually earn more than men.
More?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So it's not as straightforward as some might suggest.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it kind of throws a wrench in this whole
narrative.
Women are always paid less narrative.
Right.
And Riker suggests that the conversation often ignores nuances, like the fact that women might choose to prioritize family over career advancement, which is, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, of course not.
That's a choice that they're free to make.
Right. Yeah, and they should be supported.
They should be supported, absolutely.
In those choices.
Absolutely. Okay. But it does have implications for earnings.
It does.
Right. So he's not saying that discrimination doesn't exist.
Right.
But he's arguing that we need a more nuanced understanding of the factors at play.
Yeah.
And he advocates for a more, honest and balanced discussion that acknowledges the complexities of the issue.
Yes, I'd love that because it is so complex.
It is, and to try to reduce it down to just one factor is really doing a disservice.
That's absolutely
to everybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now this next part is really intriguing.
Okay.
So Riker dives into the damsel in distress archetype.
Oh.
Suggesting that some women actually use this tactic to gain power and control.
Okay.
And he gives this real-life example of this woman named Anna who constantly plays the victim to manipulate men and get what she wants.
Yeah. And
it goes back to that emotional manipulation that we talked about.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's a subtle way to exploit men's protective instincts.
Right, yeah.
Make them feel obligated to rescue her.
Yeah. Yeah, and
to fix the situation.
It's all about understanding those power dynamics.
It is.
Yeah.
And how these archetypes can be used consciously or unconsciously to control relationships.
Right. Yeah, and again, Riker's he's not bashing women.
No, not at all.
He's just trying to illuminate these.
He's trying to bring awareness to these patterns and how they can impact men.
Right. Yeah.
And he suggests that perpetuating this damsel in distress narrative can actually be damaging.
Yeah, I could see that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it reinforces a sense of dependence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it undermines women's ability to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, to take care of themselves.
Empowered.
Right.
Right. And that brings us to another kind of provocative point that Riker makes.
Okay.
Which is the rise of female narcissism.
Female narcissism. Okay.
Yeah, he argues that this is a growing trend.
Yeah.
That's being fueled by factors like social media.
Okay.
Disney princess culture.
The Disney princesses.
And even the lean in phenomenon.
Okay, lean in.
Right. And he suggests that all of these things are contributing to this culture.
Okay.
Where women are pressured to be perfect.
Yeah.
Successful.
Yeah, I could see that.
Which can lead to a narcissistic mindset.
Okay, and he talks about how...
He talks about how selfie culture
and
the pursuit of likes on social media...
Yeah, it's all about attention.
...can feed this narcissism.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about presenting this curated version of yourself.
Right.
Constantly seeking...
Yeah, validation
and attention.
Yes.
And Riker argues that this focus on self can lead to a lack of empathy for others and a sense of entitlement.
Okay, yeah.
And again, this is not to say that all women are narcissists.
Right.
Not at all. But it's recognizing this as a potential consequence of the pressures that women face.
Right, yeah.
And he argues that this trend has a ripple effect, right? Impacting relationships, family dynamics.
Yeah, totally.
You think about... You mentioned the Disney princess narrative.
Yeah.
These characters...
They're beautiful.
They're always beautiful.
Charming.
Yeah.
Effortlessly adored by everyone.
Well, adored by everyone, right.
Yeah.
And Riker suggests that this creates these unrealistic expectations.
For sure.
For young girls.
Yeah.
Potentially setting the stage for a narcissistic worldview.
Yeah. And then you have, on top of that, the lean-in movement, which is encouraging women to be ambitious, to strive for those leadership roles.
Yeah. And again,
It's great.
there's nothing wrong with ambition.
No, not at all.
Right. But Riker points out that it can also contribute to this pressure cooker environment
Yeah.
where women feel like they have to be super women.
Right, yeah.
You know, further fueling the potential for narcissism.
Right, yeah. So it's like...
So it's about finding that balance.
Yeah, right.
You know, encouraging women to pursue their goals without sacrificing empathy.
Right, yeah.
Consideration for others.
Yeah, it's a complex topic.
It's a complex topic.
But Riker's analysis is definitely food for thought.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so now let's shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, and talk about something that I think we've all noticed.
Okay.
Okay. And that is the feminization of entertainment.
The feminization of entertainment, yes.
Yeah.
And Riker argues that there's been this shift.
There's been a definite shift towards female-centric narratives. Okay.
Where male characters are often portrayed as either buffoons or villains.
The bumbling idiot.
Right, the bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
Or the evil...
The evil misogynist.
The misogynist.
You know, think about the last time you saw a movie or a TV show where the male character was competent, intelligent, heroic.
It's
becoming increasingly rare.
It is.
And Riker suggests that this trend is sending a message that masculinity is something to be mocked.
Yeah, or ashamed of.
Yeah.
It's not okay to be a man.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and he points to the increasing influence of female directors and producers in the entertainment industry.
Right.
And while, you know, representation is important.
Sure.
You know, we want to see diversity.
Right.
Riker argues that it's contributed to this imbalance in the portrayal of men.
Yeah, and I think it's a natural consequence.
It is.
Of you know, just that shift.
Who's telling the stories.
Who's telling the stories, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's not about saying women shouldn't tell their stories.
No, not at all.
But it's, you know, it's acknowledging that this shift...
It's acknowledging that this shift has created a skewed representation of masculinity.
Yeah.
And
that can have a negative impact on boys.
Absolutely.
And their self-esteem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And their view of gender roles.
Right. Their place in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
We've only just scratched the surface.
We just started
of what Riker covers in this book.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know...
There's so much more.
There's so much more to discuss.
Yeah. But we got to take a break.
We got to take a break.
Yeah, but we will be back.
We will be back.
To delve into even more.
For part 2.
Of the cultural war on men.
Of our deep dive into the cultural war on men.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right, so we're back, and we're diving even deeper into The Cultural War on Men by Conrad Weicker. We've already uncovered some pretty thought-provoking stuff, but Riker doesn't let up. One of the things he really hammers home is this idea of a war on male friendship.
Yeah, this part really hit me hard. Like it's almost like society views male bonding as inherently suspicious.
It's like, yeah, like it's got to be something bad going on.
Right.
Like, what are they up to? Why are they all together?
Like, what are you guys plotting? You know, like come on.
Right, exactly.
But it's like we've forgotten how important these bonds are.
Essential, yeah,
for men's mental health, for their emotional well-being.
Their survival.
Yeah.
I mean, and Riker, he kind of suggests that this comes from a misunderstanding of male psychology.
Okay.
Yeah. Men often connect differently than women.
Through shared activities.
Yeah.
Competition, even a little bit of roughhousing sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and these types of interactions are vital for men to feel a sense of belonging.
Camaraderie.
Yeah. You know, and Riker, he argues that, you know, men need spaces where they can be themselves, let their guard down. Be vulnerable without fear of judgment.
Yeah.
But as we discussed earlier, those spaces are becoming increasingly rare.
Vanishing.
Yeah, they're vanishing.
It's like, it's because of this. I mean, Riker, he blames it on several factors. You know, the rise of feminism, this push for political correctness.
Yeah.
And just, you know, this general fear of being labeled as toxic.
Right, exactly.
Like we're trying to sanitize male interaction.
Yeah. Stripping
it of its natural energy, its vibrancy.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we want to turn men into, you know, these kind of, you know, soft, cuddly, you know, emotionless beings. And that's not how men...
It's not natural.
It's not natural. Yeah. We need our rituals. We need our ways of blowing off steam.
Yeah.
are outlets for expressing our masculinity in a healthy way.
Absolutely.
And Riker, he argues that, this suppression of natural male bonding has consequences.
Dire consequences.
Yeah.
When men don't have these outlets, they're more likely to experience isolation, depression,
Suicidal thoughts.
even suicide.
Yeah.
And he suggests that this is a major contributing factor to the rising male suicide rates.
Absolutely.
It's pretty sobering.
It is.
It's like we're essentially denying men a fundamental aspect of their nature,
Right.
and the repercussions are devastating.
Yeah, and he doesn't stop there.
He doesn't.
He connects this attack on male bonding to the broader assault on male sexuality.
Okay.
He argues that men are bombarded with mixed messages.
All the time.
Yeah. Be sensitive, be emotionally available, but don't be too assertive. Don't express your masculinity too strongly. It's like pick a lane.
What are we supposed to do?
Yeah, it's this classic double bind.
Yeah.
Damned
if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
And it's no wonder that men are confused and insecure.
Right.
About their own sexuality.
About who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Riker kind of suggests that this confusion is almost intentional.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's part of a larger societal push to feminize men.
Right.
To strip them of their traditional roles and values.
Exactly, to make them more manageable, more controllable.
Yeah. He points to the media's portrayal of men.
Yeah.
The education system's bias against boys.
Absolutely.
And the rise of female-dominated industries as evidence of this.
Yep. Yeah.
And he paints a pretty bleak picture.
He does.
But he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong.
Think about how many movies and TV shows depict men as bumbling idiots or aggressive villains.
Oh, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, yeah.
And those stereotypes, they have real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
They shape how society views men.
How women perceive us.
How we perceive ourselves,
Yeah. So what's the solution?
Yeah, right. What do we do?
Riker doesn't offer any easy answers.
Yeah.
But he does encourage men to kind of resist this feminization trend.
Okay.
He urges us to embrace our masculinity.
Yes.
To build strong male communities.
Absolutely.
And to speak out against the forces that are trying to silence us.
To reclaim our voices.
Yes.
And I think what he's getting at is that true strength comes from embracing both our masculine and feminine qualities.
Okay, finding a balance.
Finding a balance.
Yeah.
It's not about rejecting emotions or sensitivity, but it's about integrating those qualities with our core masculine traits.
Yeah, it's not about going back to some,
No.
like caveman persona, right?
Right, exactly.
It's about finding that healthy balance.
Yeah.
And he also highlights the importance of personal responsibility.
Oh, absolutely.
This is huge.
It's about taking ownership of our lives, making positive choices.
Yep.
And not falling into the trap of victimhood.
Right. Stop blaming other people for your problem.
Yeah, it's about being proactive.
Exactly.
Not reactive.
Take control.
So now let's go back to the gender pay gap.
Okay, back to the gender pay gap.
Something we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
And, Riker, he challenges this whole notion that it's solely due to discrimination against women.
Right.
He really dives deep.
He breaks it down.
He breaks it down into these various factors that contribute to this discrepancy in earnings.
Yeah.
And he acknowledges that there is a gap.
Right.
But he argues that the narrative surrounding it is often oversimplified.
And misleading.
Yeah. And he points out that, women, on average, they tend to make different career choices than men.
They have different priorities.
Yeah, often.
Prioritizing flexibility, work-life balance over salary.
Over straight up, dollar signs.
Yeah, and he provides this really interesting example.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
He says, in major cities like New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., women aged 25 to 34 actually earn more than their male counterparts.
Wow.
And this is something that often gets overlooked in this whole...
In the heated debate.
In the heated debate about the pay gap.
Yeah.
So it kind of throws a wrench in this whole assumption.
Right.
That women are universally disadvantaged in the workplace.
Yeah.
And again, Riker he's not saying that discrimination doesn't exist.
No, of course not.
But he's just saying, we need to have a more honest and nuanced discussion.
Yeah, look at all the factors.
That considers all the relevant factors.
Right. And I think his point is that empowering women doesn't require demonizing men.
Right.
Or perpetuating this narrative of victimhood. It's about recognizing and celebrating the unique strengths.
Yeah, the differences.
And differences between men and women, you know.
Yeah.
And I think he would say that true equality comes from acknowledging and respecting those differences.
Not trying to erase them.
Not trying to erase them.
Pretend they don't exist.
Exactly.
Okay, so Riker also delves into this concept of the feminization of society.
Okay, the feminization of society.
Arguing that this trend has, far-reaching consequences.
For both men and women.
For both men and women, yeah.
Okay.
And he explores how traditional masculine roles and values are being eroded.
Okay.
And replaced with feminine ones.
Okay, so give me some examples.
Well, he points to the rise of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
As this, valued trait in the workplace.
Yeah.
And he suggests that it often comes at the expense of logic and reason.
Okay, so it's like we're valuing feelings over facts.
Yeah, and he also discusses the role of political correctness.
Oh, yeah.
In silencing men.
Making them afraid to speak up.
Afraid to express their true opinions.
Right.
And he argues that this climate of fear and censorship prevents open and honest dialogue.
Which is essential for a healthy society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he uses the example of the #MeToo movement.
Oh, okay, the #MeToo movement.
Which he believes has been, weaponized against men.
Okay.
Creating a culture of suspicion and guilt.
Okay.
And while he acknowledges the importance of addressing sexual harassment and assault,
of course,
he argues that it needs to be done in a way that doesn't demonize all men.
Right.
Or create a climate of fear.
Where men are afraid to even interact with women.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And he suggests that the pendulum has swung too far.
Okay.
In the other direction.
Okay.
Creating a situation where men are often presumed guilty.
Before proven innocent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also revisits this topic of the feminization of entertainment.
Okay.
And he provides this, stark illustration of this trend. He challenges listeners to think about the last time they saw a movie or TV show.
Yeah.
Where the male character was the competent, intelligent, heroic one.
Right.
And it's becoming increasingly rare.
Yeah.
And he argues that this trend is sending a clearer message to young boys.
Okay.
That masculinity is something to be ashamed of.
To be mocked.
To be mocked.
Yeah. And that's got to have an impact on their development.
Right. It's damaging.
It's got to be.
Yeah, it's damaging to their self-esteem.
Absolutely.
Their development as men.
Yeah.
And he paints a pretty bleak picture.
He does.
But he also offers a glimmer of hope.
Okay.
He believes that men can fight back against this feminization trend.
Okay, so what can we do?
He urges men to embrace their masculinity.
Okay.
To build strong male communities.
Yes.
And to speak out against the forces that are trying to silence them.
To reclaim their power.
Yeah. He believes that true strength comes from embracing both our masculine and feminine qualities.
Okay.
Finding that balance.
That balance, yeah.
He also stresses the importance of personal responsibility.
Yes.
Arguing that men need to take ownership of their lives and stop blaming others for their problems.
Own your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he provides, specific strategies for doing so.
Okay, so what are some of those strategies?
Focusing on self-improvement.
Okay.
Building strong relationships.
Yeah.
And finding purpose and meaning in life.
Okay, so it's like an inside job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to start with yourself.
Right.
And then, work outwards.
Right.
He encourages men to become leaders.
Yes.
In their communities.
Yeah.
Be role models for younger generations.
Okay.
And to fight for a world.
Yes.
Where men are respected and valued.
Absolutely.
For their unique contributions.
And he reminds us that the future of masculinity isn't about returning to some, archaic patriarchal model. That's right.
It's about evolving.
Yeah.
Adapting to the challenges of the 21st century.
Right.
While still holding on to the core values that make men who they are.
Right. And that's the key.
Yeah, finding that balance.
Finding that balance, yeah. So we've talked about a lot of the external pressures men face today, but, Riker also gets into something in the cultural war on men that can be really tough to confront. It's more internal.
Okay.
And it's this whole idea of female narcissism.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like it's almost taboo to even talk about it.
It's definitely a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
It's not one that a lot of people are comfortable discussing.
Yeah, but Riker doesn't shy away from it. He argues that while not all women exhibit these narcissistic traits, it is a growing trend, and it's something that can significantly impact
men's lives
and relationships.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, how he connects this rise in female narcissism to these societal shifts.
He points to things like social media, the Disney princess phenomenon, and even the lean-in movement.
Okay, so how do these things contribute to narcissism in women?
I think, he suggests it's about the messages that these things send, often subconsciously.
Yeah.
You take social media, for example.
Yeah.
It's all about, curating this perfect image.
Yeah.
Seeking validation.
Through likes and followers.
Through likes, followers.
Yeah.
And it can foster this constant need
for attention.
For attention and validation.
External validation.
External, yeah.
Which are hallmarks of a narcissistic personality.
Yeah, and then you have, the classic Disney princess narrative.
Right.
Beautiful, charming, effortlessly adored by everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And while those are entertaining stories, Riker argues that they can create
realistic expectations for young girls.
Yeah, for young girls.
Yeah. Setting the stage for a sense of entitlement, lack of empathy for others.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have the lean-in movement, which is encouraging women, which is great, to be ambitious.
Right, yeah.
To strive for those leadership roles.
Yeah.
But again, Riker suggests that this, too, can contribute to this pressure cooker environment where women feel like they have to be superwomen.
Right.
Further fueling that potential for narcissism.
Yeah.
So how does this...
So what's the impact on men?
Affect men specifically?
Yeah.
Well, Riker provides some pretty eye-opening examples of how female narcissism can manifest in relationships.
Okay.
Often through
manipulation
and this need for control.
Right.
And, he talks about, women using their emotions as weapons.
Oh, yeah.
Playing the victim.
To gain sympathy.
And attention. Constantly needing to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
Even at the expense of their partner's needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be so subtle.
It can be really subtle and emotionally draining.
Yeah.
For the men involved.
And the consequences, as Riker points out, are pretty far-reaching,
Okay.
He suggests that this rise in female narcissism is contributing to things like declining marriage rates.
Oh, wow.
The increase in single motherhood, and even the rise in violence against men. And again, it's important to reiterate that this is not about demonizing women.
Right.
It's about recognizing a pattern.
Right.
Understanding the underlying psychology.
Yeah.
And equipping men with the tools
to
navigate these complex dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah. And Riker, he offers some practical advice,
Okay.
He urges men to set those clear boundaries.
Yeah.
Recognize red flags early on.
Yeah, it's red flag.
And have the courage to walk away from relationships.
If you have to, that are toxic or unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be afraid to walk away.
Yeah, and I think this brings us to this point that Riker only touches on briefly.
Yeah.
But I think it's crucial to understanding the broader context of his book.
Yeah.
Which is the future of masculinity.
The future of masculinity.
Where do we go from here?
Right. It's the big question, isn't it?
It is the big question. And he acknowledges that we're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
Traditional masculinity is under attack.
Right.
But there's also this growing awareness
that
men need to embrace their emotions.
Right.
Be more vulnerable.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like we're in this in-between space.
How do we reconcile these seemingly conflicting expectations?
Yeah, how do we reconcile that? And Riker, he believes that the key lies in finding that balance.
That balance.
Yeah, he encourages men to embrace their strength, their courage, their leadership qualities.
Right. Yeah.
Being open to expressing their emotions and connecting with others on a deeper level.
Right.
It's about being authentic, being comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
Regardless of those
societal
pressures. Yeah.
I like that.
And it's about recognizing that true masculinity isn't about dominance or aggression.
Right.
It's about integrity, responsibility, compassion, and
vulnerability.
Even vulnerability.
Yeah.
And this brings us to Riker's call to action.
Okay.
He urges men to stand up for themselves, to reclaim their rightful place in society, and to create a world
Yeah.
where both men and women
Can thrive.
Yeah. And embracing
Their unique strengths.
their unique strengths, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about challenging those negative narratives
About men.
about men, supporting each other, and working towards a future
Yeah.
where masculinity is celebrated, not demonized.
I like that. Yeah.
And Riker, he reminds us that this isn't just a fight for men's rights.
Right.
It's about the well-being of our families, our communities,
Yeah.
and ultimately the health of our society as a whole.
Absolutely.
So The Cultural War on Men, a survival guide,
Yeah.
is a powerful and timely book that sheds light on the challenges that men face today.
For sure.
It's a call to awareness, a roadmap for navigating these complex dynamics,
Absolutely.
and ultimately a message of hope
And empowerment.
Yeah,
I like that.
And if you're ready to dive deeper into these topics
Yeah.
and explore Riker's insights,
Mm-hmm.
you can find The Cultural War on Men, a survival guide, on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Go check it out.
It's a book that will challenge your assumptions, spark some important conversations,
For sure.
and hopefully equip you with the knowledge and tools to navigate this cultural landscape with greater confidence and understanding.
Absolutely.
This has been quite a deep dive, and we appreciate you joining us on this journey.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
We'll see you next time for another exploration of the ideas that are shaping our world.